You're listening to the Building Psychological Strength podcast, Business Edition. My name is April Seifert. Not only am I a doctoral level psychologist, but I've been a successful entrepreneur for a number of years and have learned firsthand that building psychological strength can have a direct impact on your business success. In this Friday edition of the podcast, I'll offer you tools, tips, tricks, and information to help you become stronger, more resilient, and more successful. Let's get to it. Paula Cole once said, "It's me who is my enemy, me who beats me up, me who makes the monsters, me who strips my confidence." Tell me if you've ever experienced this. You're working on your business or setting a new goal or planning for a product or a service launch, or you're forecasting revenue for the year, and your mind steps in. It says, "Who are you to think that you can achieve that?" Or, "Who are you to be doing something like that?" Or, "Why do you think you're qualified when so many other people are so much better than you?" Or, "People like you don't achieve things like that." Imposter syndrome runs incredibly deep in entrepreneurship. And I would bet my annual revenue that the majority of the entrepreneurs and business people who are listening right now have experienced this on multiple occasions. I mean, let's be honest, for some of us, it's like a weekly or even daily occurrence. And not only that, but when we feel like an imposter, it zaps our confidence. And we tend to set goals that are below our capacity. We make decisions that are safe rather than the ones that are a calculated risk that could move our business forward. Essentially, imposter syndrome sets us up to underperform. And even more, most of the advice that I hear on the internet and in other domains is actually really ineffective. I mean, it's good intentioned, but it's not really based in the science of what helps us in situations like this. And that's why we're tackling the topic of imposter syndrome on the podcast today. So in the next few minutes, we're going to dive into imposter syndrome and one of the biggest causes of it. We'll talk about the typical advice that we hear and why it isn't actually effective. And then we'll talk about what you can do about it. You know, I think we're all probably pretty familiar with imposter syndrome. It's that voice of doubt in our head that speaks up when we're doing something bigger than we've done before, or we're doing something uncertain or new or not perfectly planned out. It's a voice of warning, and it can feel crushing. So, where does it come from? The thing you need to remember is that our mind's biggest goal is to keep us safe while expending the least amount of energy possible. And it developed this capability a very, very long time ago when we essentially faced mortal danger on a daily basis. And it performs this little service for us by influencing us to avoid anything that it's not familiar with. Think about it. Back when this instinct of ours was formed, simply drinking out of an unfamiliar watering hole could cause a deadly bacterial infection. Simply venturing into uncharted territory could lead you into the realm of deadly predators. So uncertainty, unfamiliarity, ambiguity, these things were deadly. Now the thing is, evolution takes a long time. That part of our mind, the limbic brain, is still basically operating on the same software it installed 150 million years ago when the world was a very different place. So you can kind of understand that in the context of the world today, our mind sort of overreacts when it comes to new and uncertain and ambiguous things. So let's bring it back to business. The fact of the matter is that in business, you'll do new, uncertain, and ambiguous things daily. And as soon as you get comfortable and familiar with one process or action in your business, a new challenge or goal will come up and it'll require you to do new, uncertain, or ambiguous things. That's just the name of the game. And our minds, in an attempt to be helpful and keep us safe, get very loud to try to dissuade us from doing the new, uncertain thing. For many of us, it's the trick it's learned to keep us in line is to drum up self-doubt by way of this imposter syndrome. Now, most of the advice you get in other places involves giving you new ways to think about your role. For example, I'll hear people with great intentions. People will say, you just have to remember that everyone who ever did something new felt this way. They felt just like you. Or the world needs you and your unique special talents. Now, all of this is true, absolutely true. And it likely helps you feel like you're not alone in it. But it likely isn't all that helpful in helping you cope with imposter syndrome because, get ready for it, your mind doesn't learn, grow, and change by thinking. It seems contradictory, but you can't think your way out of a mindset problem. That's not how it works. Our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors operate on a powerful feedback loop, and it's our behaviors, not our thoughts, that begin to chip away at the anxiety and the fear that the imposter syndrome causes. So let's walk through an example. Let's go back to that watering hole I talked about before. There's really no way to show your mind that the water in that watering hole is safe just by thinking about it. You can't prove to your mind that there's no bacteria in that water just by sitting there staring at it and thinking about it. The fastest way, albeit in this context a bit risky, but the fastest way to show your mind that the watering hole is safe is to drink out of it and not die. Now, similarly, the only way to prove to our imposter syndrome mind that this new goal or this new action we're going to take is, in fact, not going to kill us is to take the action. To use behavior to show our mind that we're going to be safe. To build familiarity in a new domain. It sounds so simple, right? But sometimes simple things are not easy. And this is one of those times. It's not easy because while we're attempting to do the behavior or take the action, our minds will get so loud and try to dissuade us from acting. Now, this is where a second core principle of the mind comes in. So the first principle is keep you alive while expending the least amount of energy possible. Here's the second one. Those automatic thoughts, those imposter syndrome thoughts that you experience, those are generated by your limbic system, which means you did not generate them. Those thoughts are not you. Those thoughts actually have very little to do with you or the reality of the context you're in. They're simply your old mind running a habit loop it learned over 150 million years ago. In contrast, you are the deliberate part of your mind, the thoughtful part, the voice of reason, logic, calm, centeredness, the true entrepreneur asset. You do not have to engage with the thoughts that your limbic system sends you. You can simply acknowledge them and move on. Now, the best way that I've learned to do this, it sounds crazy, but to actually have a conversation with that part of my mind. When you think about it, that part of your mind is actually a very caring part. It has your best interest at heart. So having a conversation that goes something like, hey, I see you. I see all that you're trying to do for me to keep me safe, and I really appreciate it. But I need you to trust me. I've got this. I've got us. I promise I've thought through this, and we're going to be okay. We're going to take these next actions one step at a time, and things are going to be okay in the end. I promise. Now, I realize this sounds dumb, but what you're doing, to give you an idea of the underlying mechanism that's working here, what you're doing when you have a conversation like this is putting some psychological distance between you and the imposter syndrome thoughts you're having. You're saying, I am the person who's talking, and I'm talking to these thoughts, which are a separate entity from me. That psychological distance is important because what it does is it allows you to unhook your emotions and your actions from those thoughts. You're still acknowledging them, We're not avoiding anything here. Those thoughts are not going to go away. But what you're doing is you're acknowledging them in a way that allows you to move forward and do the things that you need to do to grow your business. So the thoughts are there, but they're just not influencing you as strongly as they were before. This takes practice, but the more you do it, the more you will easily be able to recognize when these automatic thoughts are happening and intentionally cause some distance between you and them so that you can unhook from those thoughts and move forward in a way that you need to in order to grow your business. So let's recap really quickly. Imposter syndrome crops up when we're doing something new. It's our mind's way of keeping us safe. Now, we may feel inclined to reason with those imposter thoughts, but you can't think your way out of a mindset problem. It requires action in order to build familiarity. Now, you can help yourself take action by using a compassionate conversation to establish you, the entrepreneur asset, as a separate entity from your imposter thoughts and unhook your emotions from them so that you can move forward with more intention. Now, truthfully, this is a big topic and we have only scratched the surface of it, but I know we'll end up covering it again in the future. But for now, I want you to try this out because it is so common for people who are in entrepreneurship roles. Entrepreneurship and business are going to require taking daily actions that are new and ambiguous, and I know that you can do it. Thank you so much for joining me for this business edition of the Building Psych Strength podcast. If you're an entrepreneur, current or aspiring, and you're interested in becoming more successful, hit the subscribe button. If you're really interested in digging deep, visit aprilseifert.com where you can book a discovery call to see if Psych Strength business success coaching is right for you. And until next week, be strong, be resilient, and be successful.